Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show.
It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you're just tuning in, this is a show that comes to you live from the Scottsdale Airpark Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. We're podcasting now, too. You can pull us down off of any of the podcasting apps. We ask you that you like us, you give us a review, and more importantly, recommend us. So if this is the first time you've tuned into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How do they do that? They do that by not listening to me, but to these extraordinary guests that I get to come to the show. So today's no different, but I have a guest that, appeared here for the first time 9 years ago, and the last time 8 years ago, and kind of, moved away, did a couple things. COVID happened, and she and I got reacquainted about a year ago, and here she is back in my studio, and she is doing so many terrific things in our community, especially in the healthcare community and the aging community. Sidnee Peck, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
It's so great to have you back here. And our paths collided literally like 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago with Aging 2.0. And for those that don't know about Aging 2.0, Aging 2.0 is I'll call it a curator of innovators, people that are looking to disrupt maybe the elder and aging world. It also is a curator for senior living communities and home healthcare companies and home care companies like mine. And it also was where a lot of institutional and venture and private equity companies were to really help those innovators. And you and I became acquainted there, and wow, I mean, how much has changed in the world? It is crazy because we were seeing a lot of really innovative stuff from these kids, I'll call them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that stuff did come to fruition, and a lot of failures along the way, but I think everyone learned along the way.
Yeah, that's entrepreneurship, huh?
It is entrepreneurship. And speaking of entrepreneurship, I know a lot about you, but our listeners don't, and some of them weren't listening to our show 9 years ago or 8 years ago. It would be really nice if you could kind of, give us a quick little bio and a little background on you. I think you're from New Mexico, right?
I am. Albuquerque.
Yeah, I remember that. Did you know Mr. White?
No.
No, you didn't know Mr. White. That was a Breaking Bad comment. Yeah.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? Okay. But please indulge me and our listeners a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah. So after New Mexico and DC, I came to Arizona in 2007 to go to WP Carey. That's where I got my MBA and got connected with my first business partner, got turned on to entrepreneurship. So I've been in the entrepreneurship space ecosystem in Arizona since about then.
We actually met then too.
Around that time? Yeah.
Yeah, you remember an attorney, Michael Hull, put us together.
Yes, that's right.
And I was like, who is this person?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got reacquainted years later.
And then just all these things keep happening. Yeah. So got my first startup experience in 2009, got hired back to ASU to teach entrepreneurship a year later, and built the Center for Entrepreneurship at WP Carey there. And the focus of all of our efforts were, how do we take these young minds who are super motivated, on fire about something, and give them the time and space to build things. Because business school traditionally is, how do you get a job at an existing company and work your way up? This is, how do you start from nothing? And those are two very different approaches. So we built that. I was at ASU full-time for about 6 years, teaching for about 9. Left there. That's when we get into the Aging 2.0 world, and was with a dementia therapy company for a little while. And that was the time that my father was diagnosed with young onset dementia. And all of that was kind of, weaving in together. I was understanding what it was like to have a parent in his 50s going through dementia and another parent who was full-time caregiving. So I learned a lot about that environment, and tried to apply that professionally in this role, running this dementia company. Ultimately, that wasn't a great co-founder fit, but I learned a lot about the space, made a lot of really great connections in the aging space. And I put that on the back burner for a little bit, went into some other technology companies. I was an early employee at Source Global, and did some other work in entrepreneurship and sustainability for a little while. Then we launched a venture studio out of Colorado State University during the pandemic. The only reason I got to do that was because we were doing it remotely, so that was great. Another environment where entrepreneurs are given the time and space to work on things. This was tech transfer, so that's getting researchers to be able to bring their research into the market. So we did that for a little while. And then, all this time in the back of my mind, there was this nagging about, I love age tech, and a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on it because, if we're being very blunt, people are trained in the business world to get young customers and keep those customers for a long time, right? They're going to pay you money for longer. That's not the case when you're serving an older market. However, the opportunity and the market size is really large, and so there really is a lot of opportunity in age tech. Meanwhile, I became a foster parent and got to see the inner workings of the foster care system. And as an entrepreneur and a problem solver, kind of blew my mind the way the foster care system works. And I won't go into detail on that, but it is as
it was an awakening.
Yeah, and it's as much of a mess as you could imagine that it is. So just a lot of things, as it happens, I think in our careers, a lot of things kind of happen individually and then weave together into a story that makes sense, which is where we are today in a project that I'm working on called Heirloom Collective. And what we're building is Heirloom Communities. These are intergenerational living environments designed to be small in size, under 40 units, to encourage social connectivity and build social networks, allowing for dignity and agency and human connection. We do a lot in other social services and housing to get people the resources they need. But if there's anything I've learned in my time in dementia work and with the foster care system, it's that human connection is really the secret sauce that makes for a beautiful life. And those of us, like you and I, who were born into loving families, in neighborhoods where people cared about us, in schools where we made friends, we don't think about this because it's embedded.
Right.
But when you are all alone, either because you're aging alone or because you grew up going from foster family to foster family, you don't have that. And we talk about, okay, here's your SNAP for your food, and here's this for medical, and here's reduced rate rent. But we don't talk about really what gets us out of bed in the morning and gets us the connection to the job interview or to the volunteering activity or someone to come check on us when we're not feeling well. And so that's what Heirloom Communities is really about, is building the social connectivity, creating a time and space for that. We've learned a lot, which I'm happy to share more, but learned a lot about other similar communities and how to do it well. And right now we are building the programs around that. So we're doing some in-person programs and building an AI agent to support some of this, but still fundraising for the actual site to build the residential community.
Wow. I mean, listen, your career path is, in my mind, phenomenal. And I love the fact that you went back to school to be a professor and teacher and helping these kids with these ideations to come to reality. You've done the show. It's been a long time. They're 4 segments. They go really, really fast. As you can tell by the music, we're down our first one. But I want to do a deeper dive into Heirloom Communities, the collective, and really where you see this thing going, because I think it's a really big idea, not just here in Arizona. I think it's got a universal appeal, even beyond the borders of the United States. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Sidnee Peck is here in the studio with me. It's been a long time. It's great to have you back. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you're just tuning in, I got Sidnee Peck here in the studio with me. She's a longtime friend. I wouldn't say frequent visitor to Health Futures, but I want her back not 9 years from now or 8 years from now. But if you missed that first segment, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. And it was an outstanding segment because it really frames our discussion here today. And Sidnee, you've done so much, and so much from, the fact that you were a daughter of a parent that had early onset of Alzheimer's, and you witnessed that. You not only came here to study, but you were a professor of entrepreneurship and really helping these kids with their ideations come to reality. You were involved in startups, and you've seen the success and failures along the way, and you know how challenging it is when it comes to raising money and trying to not only create your product, but bring your product to market, which is really, really hard because you're constantly trying to raise money and you're constantly trying to get critical mass, and it's really it's an art and a science at the same time. It's not really an easy thing, and now you're trying to address the issues that we have with low-income housing or housing in general.
Yep.
And that's a big task, and I know you taught this when you were teaching entrepreneurship programs. Is you find a problem that is out there and try to solve that, right? You don't want to just do what everyone else is doing, but if you want to be successful, find that problem. And you have definitely identified a problem here.
Yeah.
and it's a problem. It's a bigger problem. And I'm going to frame this for you, and then we're going to have a discussion because my listeners have heard me talk about this. When I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, we were dealing with a population explosion. The suburbs were born out of the cities. Churches and synagogues and houses and hospitals and schools and everything were being built, and we were worried what was going to happen with society. And the opposite is now happening 50 years later. We are reducing everything. We have 345 million Americans that live in America, and in order to sustain this population, every child-rearing female needs to have 2.1 kids, and we're at 1.63 and declining. And it's not going to get any better until we can figure out how to grow babies outside the womb.
Sure.
And we're not doing that. Science hasn't gotten to that point. So we have to figure this out. And now we're contracting and we're aging. The 65-year-old population between now and 2050 is doubling. And just think, the world was going to end. Y2K was just 25 years ago. This is 25 years later. We're going to have double the number of 65-year-olds, and we're going to have nearly quadruple the number of 85-year-olds.
Yep.
And on top of that, Sidnee, we have got solo agers. 1/3 of our population is aging by themselves, 65 and older. And it's predicted by Dr. Joseph Coughlin by 2050, that number is going to encroach on 50%. So we have a real problem. We have got a lot of people social isolated, a lot of older adults, and then we have your experience being a foster parent and understanding what that is all about. So that is the impetus for Heirloom Collective. So I want you to take it from here. Where do you see us solving for this? And
Sure.
Is it a government, or is it private, or is it a combination of public-private that we really solve?
Yeah, I won't pretend to be fully educated or the smartest person on affordable housing. I'm learning that. As you can tell from my history, I never have touched housing before. I knew nothing about it before I got here. My area of expertise is around this social connectivity and what I think will be the magical unlock to end cycles for these young people, but also enrich the third of life for seniors who are living alone. All I can speak to is my experience, which is that we have not enough programs that either incentivize or subsidize affordable housing in some way. We have squeezed it into plans. There are some where certain developments require a certain percentage of affordable, but the definition of affordable gets a little gray, and where you put it and how you treat it and all those things. And housing itself is a big issue. I think from my perspective, the bigger issue is the way we just throw it up and say, there you go. you've got a door you can close and you live in there, and you've got a spot to be. But that's looking back at like the projects, right? Othering and putting these people over there so that we can have our big houses with high walls over here. And to me, the answer is in intergenerational and all other diversity, income levels, life experiences in the same place. So back to the village mentality. I read something very interesting that said, years ago we had the villages where everybody kind of played a role and we all benefited, right? The older grandma who could watch somebody's kiddo while she needed to go to work, or the young kid who could fix your TV, or the various and assorted things that happened in a village. And today we just pay for that. So now we pay for someone to help our parents.
Right.
We pay for someone to help our kids. We pay for someone to drive us somewhere, clean our houses, all those things, because that's what we've deemed as success. And I think from my perspective, the big unlock, which this is a big ask, is to change the way we view success. I view it as a rich family chosen or birth, right, that you get to spend time with and live these beautiful lives. And money does enable that. But I think it comes down to this village approach.
So I can give you some real perspective because I got a few more years on you. In the last century, my mother grew up in the city of Baltimore, and her aunts and uncles lived in either the same neighborhood or the neighborhood behind them. And, you talk about intergenerational living. I mean, it existed back in the
Absolutely.
40s and the 50s. I will tell you, when someone was sick, there was a neighbor there that was a family member. And even if they weren't, they were there. I mean,
Yep.
I talked about Baltimore, all right? So it's indicative of many of the communities that are in the East and even in the Midwest. But I'm going to just pick on Arizona and California. We build walls.
We love it.
We build walls. We say, here, this is my area. You can't come here. We barely even know our neighbors. But, growing up in the East Coast, we knew our neighbors. Matter of fact, when my dad was making chicken and the neighbor across the street, across from our backyard was making steak, we said, hey, why don't we have dinner together? And we would share steak and chicken together. I mean, it was just that kind of world we lived in. And when we think about the statistics that I gave, the data that I gave, and the fact that, we just live here in Maricopa County, but Maricopa County is 9,224 square miles. There's 18 exits for Scottsdale off of the 101. I mean, it is a huge, sprawling county.
Yep.
We have to figure out how we can bring people together exactly like you're talking about, where we can share resources, right? I mean, share the care, share the landscaper, share the, the electrician, dry cleaning, all that stuff. The bodegas that exist in Manhattan, we need bodegas that are here. I mean, what's fascinating to me, and I'm being very microscopic, but have you gone down to where Paradise Valley Mall is?
Yes.
Okay, so that Paradise Valley Mall, when they built that back in the late 70s, early 80s, I think it was early 80s.
Okay.
It was a mecca. People had never seen malls like that before. They tore down that mall. They've got a couple high rises there, and there's a Whole Foods down in the basement or down on the lower floor. I mean, you don't have to leave. You go up, go down, and they have to prepare meals. You don't even have to prepare a meal. But, I think you're onto something, and you're talking about the youth, you're talking about the older adults, you're talking about bringing them together.
Yeah, I think it's in the data. So Generations United, I don't know when the report was put out in the last couple of years, but they showed significant improvement in cognitive outputs for both young adults and seniors that lived intergenerationally. Bob, they showed reduced falls for seniors if they lived in an intergenerational community that had fewer falls. And as well as I do that falls are like the ultimate thing you're trying to avoid.
100%.
The young people had increased academic outcomes. The numbers are just amazing. And something like 88% who lived in an intergenerational community or interacted in an intergenerational environment wanted to spend more time with people outside of their generation. And that's richness of perspective and experience and joy, as well as resources, right? So there's all these things we can share when we live intergenerationally. And importantly, when we live that way without it looking like it's a step backwards instead of a step forward.
Right.
You described our high walls. That's the status symbol. What if the status symbol were how many close people you had living within 100 feet. You know, I mean, I think we just need to rethink what success looks like.
And, you know, people that are in retirement years, and I'm getting close to that, but I don't have any plans to retire. If you haven't read my column I wrote for the Jewish News last month, you have to read that. Not done yet. Purpose versus
Work till
retirement.
100, yeah.
Exactly. But, I mean, the fact is that many people in their retirement years, they still have more in their cup to give.
Absolutely.
And you know what? They have so many lessons to be able to teach our younger adults and young kids. And these kids, their minds are like sponges. You said that earlier. I mean, they want to learn, and what better thing to do than to learn from someone that has experience?
Yeah, and as a society, we tell you when you reach a certain age that you're less valuable than you were in your quote-unquote prime.
So we're getting ready to wind down the second segment. Do you have any communities up and running? I know that you're in startup mode. You have shovels in the ground. You know, tell me a little bit, and maybe it'll be a tease for the second half.
We're still raising money to build our first site, but we are doing in-person events. So we just had an intergenerational cooking class. We're having movie night. We'll do another cooking class, and then a book exchange night at Changing Hands.
And where do we see all this? We see it on your website?
This is you
or
get
do
on
you
our
have to-
mailing list. So you go to our website and just fill out an interest form.
All right. So the website is heirloomcommunities.com.
Yes, or .org.
Or
both are the same.
.org.
Yep. And if you fill out our contact form, right now we're working directly with DCS and with a handful of organizations that support seniors. But if anybody is interested, our doors are open.
Perfect. Now, you know what? I got some thoughts because I know you're in the race. And remember, we're on Money Radio.
All right.
So you know, there's a tab here that says donate today. So are you a not-for-profit?
We are.
Whoa. Okay.
Yep.
Not 501c3?
We are. Yeah,
Okay.
we got it in a week, record time.
Wow.
That
That's
shows
fantastic.
you how much they want affordable housing.
Exactly. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Sidnee Peck is here in the studio. We got one of the Beatles taking us out. Stick around. We'll be right back. I hope you're enjoying the show. This is your host, Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. If you have any questions about the topics that are discussed during the show, visit us online at cypresshomecare.com or give us a call at 602-264-8009. We are entering now the second half of our show, so stay tuned for more helpful information to assist you with your aging loved ones.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, I got Sidnee Peck here in the studio with me. She is, let's put it this way, she's a serial entrepreneur. And not only is she an entrepreneur herself, she used to teach a lot. And she taught a lot of young minds over at Arizona State University. She actually created the entrepreneurship program over the W.P. Carey School, which I did not know. And I knew one of the professors that was over there because I substituted for him, or I spoke in a couple of his classes. And I love those classes, by the way. And I love those young minds. And I told you at the break that I'm working over at the HEAL Lab, which is the Healthcare Entrepreneur Accelerator Lab, which is part of the School of Nursing and Innovation at ASU. So great. And I love these young minds. And, you know, one of the things I said to these kids, you know, and it was interesting. I'll call them kids because I'm old and they are a lot younger than me. You know, I said to them, how many people here are using LinkedIn? Now, this is a few years ago. Okay. And, I mean, there were like 60 kids in the class, 50 kids in the class, and I only saw a couple hands go up. And I'm like, guys, you need to sign up on LinkedIn. Yeah. It's all about relationships, and it's about who you know. And let me tell you why. And I want you guys all to link into me. And you know what? If you're pursuing a job or an opportunity, you want to meet somebody, just take a look at who I'm linked into. And if I know that person, I'm happy to make that warm introduction because that's the way the world works, right?
It's hard to understand that when you're 19.
I know, right? Right. But I love the entrepreneurial spirit, and I love what you've done here with Heirloom Collective, Heirloom Communities. So I'd love for you to talk to me about, you know, some of the team members that you have, because you know, I don't know if you sat in a vacuum and came up with this idea. You know, how was this born? You know, I know you talked about being a foster parent, but also you know, helping with older adults.
Yeah. So it started as a lot of these things do, very lonely, just me. And I got connected really early with Steve Capobras, who was, I believe, I don't know the appropriate way to say this, but the originator of affordable housing programs in the state of Arizona. And so he's the go-to guy. He knows everything about everything in affordable housing. He founded and is executive director of Housing for Hope, which is an affiliate of Catholic Charities, and they've put up, I think now, nearly or over 1,000 units in the last handful of years. So
Wow.
they do really good work. And Steve, in our first phone call, gave me 300 reasons why to not do this. How hard it was, all the things I would run up against,
and that just motivated you.
Well,
more.
and when we got to the end of the call, and I said, "Okay, and now what?" And he's like, "Okay, now that you know all of that, if you still want to do it, I'll help you." And so we've partnered, and the first site that we're going to build is in near downtown Mesa, and it's a Catholic Charities owned lot, 2 acres, attached to a community center, which is our first targeted location. So we're working on that, and Steve's been helping and driving so much along the journey. And then I quickly started building a board because doing this alone is very, very, very lonely. And so Jacqueline Smith and Lindsay Beagley were my board at this point. Lindsay brings a really cool intergenerational lens to it. We actually met back at Aging 2.0. She was exploring intergenerational communities way back then.
Wow.
So she's been thinking about this for a long time. She knows her stuff. She's run the ASU side of Mirabella, which is a senior living community on the ASU campus. There are a handful of these around the country, hundreds in proximity, but I think just a couple actually on campus. And she's taught us a lot about how small things like proximity and bumping into each other between generations can be powerful. And Jacqueline's also at ASU. We met back in my entrepreneurship days. She's a total powerhouse in fundraising and just general strategy.
Not to be confused with Charlie's Angels, Jacqueline
Correct.
Smith. Okay. Although I'm looking at the picture, she could be. Hey, she could be.
Maybe maybe she just hasn't told me that yet. And so they've been my thought partners and really vital strategic advisors as I'm going through this and helping with fundraising and strategy. And then we've recently brought on 2 part-time staff members, Rosalind and Ivy, and they run these in-person programs that I shared, our cooking classes and our movie nights and all that fun stuff to start to bring people together intergenerationally while we're waiting to build. And they are putting together the back end of a database of resources that is feeding our AI agent, which is going to support these 2 populations in finding resources that they need. Without having to call within business hours or get a hold of somebody or, various and assorted things that make that challenging, especially for the younger group who've experienced some trauma.
Yeah, and that younger group really knows how to use tech. But I mean, with the older group, and this is what I talk about, and you talk about AI agents, I mean, I see everything because, the fact is that we're very innovative at Cypress Home Care Solutions, and we're doing some innovative stuff. So people are showing me stuff. OMG. I mean, the AI agents that are voice agents, they sound so real.
Yeah.
They really do. And
they can even be compassionate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My ChatGPT can be at times, but she can be very stubborn too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of power there. We're very purposeful and mindful about safety and making people feel okay using the agent, and so we're being very purposeful about how we're building that, and we're building that in partnership with the NAU Venture Studio, which is a new venture studio up in Flagstaff that is empowering young people who are wicked smart about all this AI stuff. I mean, I don't have a clue what they're doing, if I'm being honest, right?
Yeah.
I just show up to these calls and guide them on the principles of what we need, and these young students are building this new agent for us, so it's exciting.
Well, you know what, you're really far along. I love the partnership with Catholic Charities. I love the fact you've got a site already designated, and it's going to be right next to a center, which is really, really smart. And I shared this with you in the second segment. I mean, this is Money Radio. Donate. You're looking to raise some money to do this, so don't be bashful.
Yeah, anybody wants to write a $4 million check, we'll build the site tomorrow.
There you go. Well, $4 million is what we're looking for. So let's definitely keep this in the windshield and really out in front of us, so that we can make sure we can get you to that goal. So you are doing a lot of other things, and you are, I said, serial entrepreneur. You're always thinking about how to problem solve, and certainly this here, and what we are doing with our older population is one of the biggest problem solves of not only our generation but humanity. You're working with women, and I'm a girl dad, and
Yeah, you are.
and I love opportunities that we can lift up women. You're working with women in technology, so I really would love for you to talk to me about Femtech
Sure.
and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, actually, the impetus of Femtech AZ stems from Susan Sly, who I believe you had on the show.
I did. And let me just tell you something
Yep.
before you start. She sat right where you were, and I mean, there's an aura that emanates from people. They really have energy, and it was palpable in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. And her story about her dad is heartbreaking, and we've talked about that. And you mentioned falls.
Yep.
And her dad, and I don't want to dwell on this, but this is happening all over the world, and certainly in our country and happening in Canada, where her dad was solo aging and took a fall. And they didn't find him till days later.
Yeah.
And that is tragic. And we can use technology, and Susan and I talked about that. So please, carry on. Tell me more about Femtech.
Sure. So about a year ago, last fall, Susan and her team held the first Femtech Summit in Arizona, which really invigorated a lot of women and men around the opportunity that exists in women's health innovation. So Femtech is often people will think about women's health as just our reproductive health. But in fact, the female body, as we are learning, is not just a smaller version of the male body. It processes hormones differently. And we have estrogen receptors. And P.S., I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything, so forgive me if I don't get it exactly right. Yeah.
Disclaimer.
But our body operates differently. And so when we see symptoms, one of my favorite examples is a heart attack. The symptoms that are in the movies that we all know for a heart attack, those are male symptoms of a heart attack. Female symptoms of a heart attack are different and might be disguised or thought of as something else, headache or different types of pains. Again, let me not give those so that anybody thinks this is medical advice, but they're different. And we haven't studied women's bodies. And that's because we didn't want to harm a potentially pregnant woman. And it all started with good reasons in the beginning, but then we just failed to do it. And now we still fail to fund it. The Femtech AZ group, for which I'm a co-founder in partnership with Dr. Mitzi Krakover, is to make Arizona a Femtech hub. And what that means is, how do we unlock all the steps and all the requirements along the journey of an entrepreneur in women's health innovation? So that's diagnostics, that's digital health, like what Susan's
the pause.
The pause. Yep.
Yep.
That's different apps like Prickly Pear. It's treatments, it's wearables, it's anything that understands that a female body operates differently for Alzheimer's. It's different for autoimmune.
You can stop with Alzheimer's,
right,
just so you know, and you know the data. I mean, women get Alzheimer's at a rate of 2x of what men get. So for every Alzheimer's patient there's 2 women that have it, and it's crazy. And I will say this about hearts. I've had the pleasure of having Martha Galati. I don't know if you know her. She's head of the Barbara Streisand Heart Center at Cedars-Sinai. She talked about how they just started studying women's hearts back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they've been hundreds of years talking about men.
Yep.
Well, you hear the music. We've got one more segment, Sid. I want to talk about where you see the future going in the 4th segment. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Sidnee Peck is in the house. We got one more segment. Stick around. We'll be.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're in our 4th segment here. I've got Sidnee Peck here in the studio with me, and gosh, it's been great having you back.
It's been fun.
It really has been. If you missed those first 3 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show, and you can catch this one and many, many more. So I kind of teed up this segment because, look, you've been around technology. You've been around a lot of smart people. You are a entrepreneur yourself. We are like, the explosion of change is happening at such a high rate. Everything that is new today is old tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned these young kids up at NAU that you're utilizing for, some of the work that you're doing over at the collective, the Heirloom Collective. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And you've been around technology a lot. While you are not a programmer and really understand, but you understand the bigger picture.
Sure.
Where do you see us going? And where do you see, I gave some data points about the fact that our population of 65-year-olds are going to double, 85-year-olds going to nearly quadruple. And, you're visionary. You want to try to solve problems. That's a really big problem. Where do you see us going?
Yeah. Also not an expert on this. I don't know that anybody can predict the future, given like what you said, that every single day is brand new. But
by the way, when you were last on in 2017,
did I predict the future?
Well, you and Kent Dix were in here, and you were here for the last show of 2017. I think I asked you guys to predict, but
did
we should go back and play that.
See what we said. Yeah.
But where do you see? Not so much predicting,
Sure.
but where do you see things going? I mean, I love where you're going here with this intergenerational living. And I painted the picture of Maricopa County. I mean, 4.6 million people live in Maricopa County. And it's 9,224 square miles.
Yep.
I mean, where are we going to go? How are we going to solve?
Yeah. I mean, what I hope, one thing we know is that everything is cyclical. And so what's old is new again. And we see this throughout history. I won't speak on the political side of that. That will run its own course. Not for me to say, but
no, we can't affect that, but vote.
But vote. But on the humanity side, on how communities live together, I believe we will be, unfortunately, forced, but fortunately, back into the village environment, because housing is so expensive, because resources are so expensive, because it's so hard to do all the things, because we will not have enough caregivers to care for our aging population, because we will not have the young population growth that we need. All those things will force us back into the village. It will look very different. We'll be living, within a cul-de-sac of someone else, and we'll be texting them or using something I don't even know about yet to communicate. But I do think we will be forced back into the village. And I think only beautiful things will come from being back in the village. Something from my personal life. So I do not have my own biological children. I've been a foster parent and will be again. But I get to be an auntie. And in conversations with my girlfriends where they have young kids, I can be helpful for them. And then I get the joy of co-parenting their children for a weekend or in partnership, right? And so there's this mutual benefit of this village living. So I think we will be forced back into it, and I think it will be amazing. B, I think, I hope that we will start to leverage technology, AI specifically, to really do the things that are heavy, hard, expensive for humans to do, and not the things where we really need human interaction. So all this research around social isolation, Bob, do you remember there were they're still trying to do them, like these little robot dogs or these little robots that you would put with someone who's solo aging.
Yeah.
And that they could talk to them.
Cats.
And
the cats were like real.
Yeah.
They could purr and
and
move.
So I'm sure that helps to some degree.
Right.
But we know, and lots of research shows, being socially isolated is the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, as our Surgeon General released in the social isolation report during COVID. We need humans in our lives. So I'm hoping that we can leverage AI to find ways to connect with the humans we need to connect with, that leverages caregivers who, like, if I'm thinking about these young adults who are leaving the foster care system, they're all alone. They don't have a lot of confidence. They may not have access to certain skills or knowing where they can go in life, but they get put into a community with seniors and they can learn how to become caregivers, maybe get a nursing degree, and then coexist together where everybody has a mutual benefit and they can create their own wealth and there can be meaning and all of that stuff. So I hope we use technology to better connect the needs that I have and the needs that you have, and find the interconnectedness there and leverage all of that instead of, replacing it's thinking we can replace human connection with AI. So I know I'm a little bit out in left field for
No,
a lot
you're
of
not.
people who are thinking, AI is going to be my new girlfriend and my new whatever. I hope that we keep the human connection and we leverage technology for the things that are complicated.
Yeah, you're talking my talk. I really see us using artificial intelligence, and the smartest way to use it is to do a lot of the transactional work that we need done. Anything that's repetitive, redundant,
Yep.
that humans can allow machines to do would be great, so we can be more relational and more intentional and more authentic in our human experiences, because we need that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had Ed Perrin here on the show literally like 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's a geriatrician here in town, and he gave me this fact. Dr. Perrin said that babies get touched over 100 times a day. And we have older adults that won't get touched or can't get touched once a week, maybe sometimes once a month. And we as humans crave touch. We crave a hug. When you and I saw one another, you gave me a big hug, I gave you a big hug. It was great to see you. Or shaking a hand or a hand on the shoulder. We as human beings need that.
Well, there's actually a chemical release when you have a hug. There's the things that we're getting right now from social media and other things are so much better and magnified when it's actually a human touch or a human interaction.
So glad you brought up social media. I mean, look, it's one of the greatest tools that have been invented, but it's all one of the greatest evils.
It's very
And
scary.
the
Yeah.
amount of time people put into putting a lot of stuff up there. And you said we're not going political, and I never do. But the political stuff that comes out of here
Sure.
is nauseating.
Sure.
And I always say to take a digital diet,
Well, have a
Consi-
conversation with someone, because actually
yeah.
you would find that if somebody posted something that you are like, what the heck did you just say? If you sat and had a conversation with them, you'd see you have a lot more in common than just the disagreement on a post that was made. And so I hope we lean more into human.
This is, and I'm holding up my phone. You can't see this, but this is a monologue.
Yeah.
What we're having here is a dialogue. And I am all for more dialogues. We need more dialogues.
Absolutely.
Well, Sidnee Peck, it's so great to see you. And
Great to see you.
and I got to tell you, I love what you're doing with Heirloom Communities, Heirloom Collective. If you're listening and you're thinking that this is the right thing, you want to talk to Sidnee, definitely go out to that website.
Yes,
if they wanted
please.
to reach you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? LinkedIn to you, email?
LinkedIn is great, or both of our websites, heirloomcommunities.org or femtechaz.com, both have a contact form that I get direct access to.
And Sidnee spelled Sidnee Peck, P-E-C-K. You can
Yes.
link into her there. Remember, we were talking about LinkedIn.
Yep.
It's
Full
all
circle,
about
yeah.
relationships, right?
Indeed.
Sid, great to see you. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday.
Thanks, Bob.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.